Alan Wake is a rather unique game that blends many concepts together and produces something that it can truly call its own. It all centers around Alan, a writer who leaves the hustle and bustle of city life behind in the hopes of finishing his novel. Now when it comes down to it, Alan Wake is one of the best looking games on the 360 in terms of sheer graphical power. It runs at a solid 30 frames per second, possesses 4x anti-aliasing, a feature only possible with the 360's hardware, and has a maximum resolution of 720p. It all comes together and results in one of the most visceral adventures available on the system. The scenes have great cinematography and are very engaging. Nearly every aspect of the game is highly detailed and the environments truly give off a terrifying vibe. From the rundown shacks of the forest to dark and mysterious enemies that plague the area, the game has the best lighting effects I've ever seen in a game on the 360. Just the simple act of raising your torch brings a level of depth to the environment not often found in similar games of this nature. The enemies, known as the Taken, look very demonic and menacing. The effects of poltergeists and birds storming towards you in a hurry will constantly startle you, and they won't be forgotten. Of special note is the last boss, which is absolutely breathtaking graphically, and during the final confrontation there is so much going on at a fast and fluid pace that it is beyond remarkable. If you've never got around to it, Alan Wake is a truly unforgettable adventure that deserves your time. Ever since the franchise's early days on the PS1 and PS2, the Ace Combat series has always made a point of presenting itself in unparalleled detail. This is especially true when it comes to the planes themselves. The franchise's first appearance on the at then newest console brought with it many changes that made the experience all the more realistic. The size of each map was now substantially larger, and with the inclusion of a dynamic weather system, they had never felt so alive. Roaring through the clouds at breakneck speeds whilst the rain slams into you and trickles down your cockpit is a real highlight. But where Ace Combat 6 comes into its own is during combat. As you would expect, a whole new range of effects such as explosions, gunfire and background animations are included. For example, one mission has you flying around Grass Amiria, following its liberation while you watch fireworks light up the night sky below. Several moments like this litter the adventure and add a real weight to each and every action you carry out on the battlefield. Much like previous games, several cutscenes make up the narrative as well, and although some of them could be quite corny if I'm being honest, they are still presented very well. Although it's not one of the best when it comes to gameplay, it's still a competent entry in the series that deserves a look from fans. The Gears of War franchise has always been somewhat of a visual showcase for the Xbox 360. When the original Gears of War was released, the graphics were absolutely mind-boggling. Never had anything so raw and gritty been seen by console gamers, and it introduced a new standard of visual fidelity for the generation, and even to this day, nearly a full decade later, it still looks fantastic. The third installment, however, improved upon the previous two titles' graphics by leaps and bounds. The textures were cleaner, the colours were sharper, the lighting was superb, and the effects were absolutely stunning. Ripping through wave after wave of Locust had never been this visceral, and in my opinion it helped make the third entry the best in the series. To top it all off, it all ran buttery smooth. Throughout my time with the game, I didn't experience one instance of major slowdown that would detract from the overall gameplay. That within itself is a major achievement, considering how many things are going on at the same time during gunfights. It's absolutely incredible. Now I could sit here and praise the game as much as I want to, but as with most things, it's always good to take an objective stance and not let the glasses of nostalgia blur your vision. Gears of War 3 is not perfect. One main problem wasn't fixed, and it's mainly due to the limitation of the aging hardware. Textures still took a little while to load up at times. For a few seconds here and there, levels won't be textured, and it will look slightly awkward and does have the potential to break the immersion of the adventure, but given it a few seconds, everything would look fine eventually. It's a shame that this problem plagued every Gears of War game on the 360. Even with this issue though, there is no denying that Gears of War 3 is still hands down one of the most graphically impressive titles on the 360. It truly is jaw-dropping. Every animation, every environment, every drop of blood and dismembered limb is glorious. Not much else can be said. This game is nearly flawless in that regard. When you think of shooter games, you tend to think of dark, grim, war-torn worlds, while Vanquish is basically the exact opposite. Everything is so light, and I found it to offer a nice change of pace from what we're used to. The game does a really good job in creating a futuristic world, and at times it's almost oddly pristine. That being said, it doesn't offer much variety in terms of the environment. It's mostly just fighting in a futuristic city for the entire game. The guns themselves are a bit exaggerated in the way they look, but again I feel this goes hand in hand with the futuristic vibe, and even helps easily distinguish guns on the ground. Sam, your character, has a fancy high-tech suit, and not surprisingly is about as white as the world around him. His character design and suit is very well done. In fact, all of the human models are exceptional, but the robot designs also lack variety. In fact, there's only about 3 different enemy robot designs throughout the entire game, but they do kind of make up for this with some excellent boss fights and animations which clearly steal the show. They also throw in excellent quick-time events for these boss fights as well, and overall the graphics do have their good and not so good points. If I'm being honest though, they do help create a believable and unforgettable experience that deserves a go. The Dead or Alive series has always pushed the visual envelope with each and every subsequent release. First off, the environments look outstanding, even the ones that have explosions and are blowing up. You'll see the flames of those ones flickering and lighting the stages up appropriately. The details given to each mundane item within these stages, like windows, pillars, walls, it all manages to create the effect that they are a real, believable environment. The backdrops can be gorgeous, with the character models themselves also receiving a huge upgrade. Some have had complete model changes, so don't be too surprised when you see most of them. Alterations to the face, body, hips, and the more curvy portions of the ladies have been altered the most, so the fighting has more focus. Each of the costumes fit beautifully, each one having either a theme or casual or work look to the cast. Sweat and grime and dirt can build up on the characters and it actually sticks. Gone are the days when characters would get done fighting and look as if they've done no more than go outside for a pleasant walk. They breathe hard, look a bit tired, and even appear to need a shower after matches. Realistically, this game has evolved wonderfully. Each of the animations play out in a fluid fashion, making each and every attack hit with a real believability. If you're a fan of Dead or Alive 5 is a no-brainer. Ever since its debut on the Xbox, Halo has always been a series that prides itself on its minute-to-minute gameplay, but also the way in which it presents itself. Halo Reach, the last game to come from the developers who created the IP, managed to make it feel like the definitive Halo game. It's a little more dark than previous titles, and the enemies are even no longer so bright and colourful. This is a welcome sight, and as the environment is more desolate and destroyed for the majority of the game, it's very fitting. All of the characters, from your noble team to the enemy grunts that litter the battlefield, the animation is all wonderful. The models move with such fluent accuracy and realism, it completely draws you in. Moving on to the environment itself, it's very reminiscent of that of Halo Combat Evolved. Not the scenery per se, but the general layout. The majority of the scenery and environments are very large, providing some great playing advantages and options, mixed with some of the most detailed set pieces and interiors I've ever seen in a first-person shooter. Halo Reach is simply the best looking game in the Halo series up until that point, capturing the urgency of the story quite well. In-game, the battles are intense and filled with exceptional weapon effects. There are a few glitches and the cutscenes can suffer from a slightly sluggish frame rate, but this is a great looking game, one that captures the atmosphere of Halo's universe well, so these slight issues can easily be overlooked. Lost Odyssey is what Final Fantasy XIII should have been. Instead of offering a completely linear and nonsensical experience, Lost Odyssey set out to create a truly unforgettable adventure, and it completely succeeded in doing so. It saw the creator of the Final Fantasy series, Sakaguchi, having free reign over an entirely new property, which all revolved around the magical Industrial Revolution. Now, the most impressive aspect of Lost Odyssey has to be the world itself. The range of locations are simply staggering. From the bustling streets to the lush and vibrant forests that surround the area, you'll always find yourself staring in wonder at how realistic and well designed the environments are. The world that Mistwalker created has a truly distinct vibe and is easily the star of the show. The character models themselves are completely original as well, especially the main character Kayam, with many of the other characters looking just as impressive while still keeping the traditional JRPG look. Now, as with most RPGs, the combat system can make or break the game, and thankfully the one present within Lost Odyssey is a shining example of a system done right. Each character possesses a range of abilities that all come into their own with dazzling effects that light up the screen. From magical based attacks to physical ones, each have their own specific animation which plays out in a mesmerizing way. Now, much like the games that have inspired it, FMV sequences play a huge role in depicting the narrative that Lost Odyssey spins. As you would expect, they are all beautiful beautifully animated and presented, resulting in the events that transpire feeling all the more believable. If you never got around to trying this one out, you owe it to yourself to do so. There's no doubt that Grand Theft Auto 5 is one of the most graphically impressive games on the system. While the number of activities available in the game accounts for half of the game's immensity, the sheer literal physical size of the game accounts for the other half. It was well publicized before release that the game would feature 49 square miles of territory to explore, and you can really feel it. Flying over the game world makes it feel simply unlimited, and the natural tendency is to assume that most of the ground underneath you is merely placed there to fill in the screen and help it look realistic without actually being accessible. That's not the case though. The entirety of the map is dynamic and interactive. To go along with it is a weather system as well as a day and night cycle that further help immerse the player in the action. From the busy city of Los Santos to the desert, from the giant countryside hills and mountains to the depths of the surrounding ocean. Everything is so visually impressive. Cars and character models all look fantastic as well, with an outstanding attention to detail. One of the first times I noticed how truly detailed the game was when I got out of some water in the game and noticed that the characters' clothes were wet only up to how deep I went in the water with them. There is so many little details like this throughout the game, and there's no question that Rockstar did a perfect job in this department. Of course, it's not perfect, with some frame rate issues rearing their ugly head once the action heats up, but there's nothing that detracts from what is overall a solid experience. The Fight Night series has always possessed some awesome graphics, regardless of the system that it's released on, so it should be no surprise that Fight Night Champion is right there again with amazing looking character models, great movement and animation, sweet slow motion knockdown punches and details like skin waves rolling through cheeks after a devastating punch to the face. The only area that this game ever lacked was the audience, and it holds true with Fight Night Champion as well. Seeing your boxer walking with his entourage towards the ring does not help the look of the audience, but in my many years of experience with the Fight Night series, I couldn't care less what the audience looks like, or if their animation doesn't look realistic. Honestly, the game is done so well, and you'll be having so much fun, that you probably won't even look at the audience or care one bit what's happening outside the ropes. With the addition of the Champion mode, there is a lot more dedication from the animation team at EA, on top of the amazing visuals that we've come to know. We get the treat of watching cutscenes in the new Champion mode. The story spans your entire career and is a welcome addition to the formula. If you're a fan of the sport, this one is a no-brainer, but honestly, even if you're not, the game is just so much fun that it'll soon turn you around. When it comes to racing games, the Xbox 360 is no stranger to quality titles. From Project Gotham to Ridge Racer 6, there's plenty of choice when it comes to finding a racer on the console. But when it comes down to sheer visual fidelity, Forza Motorsport 4 has to be the clear winner. Thanks to a new lighting system, the cars and tracks look better than ever, and the game even gives you the opportunity to explore each of these cars up close. If you're like me and play with a cockpit view 99% of the time, you'll notice a difference here as well. Everything just looks superb. What they did in a couple of years between games with an underpowered system is incredible. The tracks are way better looking this time around as well. If you actually just cruise around slowly by yourself, you'll notice this. Trees and grass look much better than they did before, as do pretty much all of the background objects. I could go on about other things that are improved, but you get the point. There are some flaws though, since the game is running on obsolete hardware after all, with some of the off-track objects still being presented in low res. Well, that does it for today's video. Don't forget to hit subscribe and follow me on all of the socials to stay up to date on future videos, as well as to take part in giveaways. You can also join our growing community on Discord and meet many like-minded gamers to continue the conversation with. I'd like to give a special shout out to our Patreon supporters Rhino, Skilljim, Nano, Steve and Paddy J for their continued support that helps make these videos possible. If you're interested in joining our Discord or supporting the channel through Patreon, you'll find the links in the description. As always, thanks for taking the time to watch the video. Catch you in the next one.